welcome to another episode of The Sacred Rainbow Warrior. I'm very excited to share this episode today because it's been annoying me for years. Right, so today I'm talking about all the different acronyms and mental health, why people don't want to hear the truth, and how they're all linked onto one symptom. Now, this recently came about because I saw a lot of people are advertising the fact that they have ADHD and they're actually promoting it and they're using it to uh, kind of claim energy from other people and get people to come and into their tribe. It's very tribal, and it's another form of separation. It's like what I spoke about with gender wars when there's all these different camps of who you are. It's like politics. All these different forms of separation. It's like going into a supermarket and choosing your favorite brand. And I knew and I know because I've healed this in myself that every single mental health disorder that we're told is a disorder, and let's face it, there have been more and more trending. Like I saw this word trending, how PTSD is trending. It makes me feel a bit sick actually, but how they've increased over the years, right? So it's giving us more forms of pigeonholing, more forms of separation, and more tribes for us to fit in so that we can belong to a distorted energy. And the greatest trending one at the moment is ADHD. I spoke about this in a video previously about I heard a couple of guys walking down the street, and one of them said, "You've got ADHD, mate," and he's like, "Oh no." Like the ridiculousness of that is just unbelievable. But it doesn't take much more than that, you know. It can just be someone saying, "Oh, maybe you've got that, maybe you've got this, maybe you're this, maybe you're that." You know, I've fallen from that. I've gone through a really, 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 really long journey and deep journey of overcoming let's call it, there's so many things you can call it. In the 3D world, it's called mental illness or mental health or CPTSD, bipolar ADHD, autism. There's so many acronyms that describe all the same symptoms and they all come from the same source. And I'm going to go through this and I'm going to prove it to you. So there are so many that I actually did a comparison chart. I've got a piece of paper here, but it's not showing up. I'll put it on screen, right? So I was actually shocked how many different acronyms there are to describe different forms of behavior. And again, I'm going to prove to you how they share all one simple root cause. So there's this one's great. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. PD, panic disorder. SAD, which also says seasonal active disorder, is social anxiety disorder. MDD, major depressive disorder. PDD, persistent depressive disorder. There's all these different disorders of depression. Um, ADHD, we know that one, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I want to talk about that one because that's the most common one at the moment that everybody is promoting. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I got diagnosed in 2015 with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. God, they're a mouthful. OCD, everyone knows about that one. Obsessive compulsive disorder. BPD, borderline personality disorder. I know about that one. I've been through that, and I've I've had to heal abuse from people who have that but don't know they have that. Schizophrenia, that's a really interesting one, very interesting one. I would like to talk about that one. Psychotic disorders, which include hallucinations, eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, and addictions. And I'm going to read outright all of these things that I just read. They all have these common symptoms in common. They all have these symptoms in common. And they do sound like common symptoms, right? But this is what's wrong. This is what's out of alignment with how we look at ourselves. We go on Google and go, "Oh, I feel like this way," and it comes up with all these symptoms, and we go tick, 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 tick. Oh, I must be depressed. I must have ADHD. I must have PTSD, right? And I experienced this with my partner, right? She went when I met her, I introduced her to um the symptoms of narcissistic abuse, ADHD, autism, PTSD. And she started to identify, and agoraphobia actually, she started to identify those symptoms within herself. And she then started saying, I've got PTSD. I've got agoraphobia. I've got ADHD. I've got autism. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. 1 minute there. Let me tell you about this. And she was like, oh, right. But there is a bonus. There's a positive side to it. As I say, right, in my story, I got, so much happened to me, but the one thing that changed my life is I got my head kicked in really badly. And I won't go into details, but the that changed my life and it completely changed my neural makeup and who I was. And it took me 15 years, because that happened in year 2000. It took me 15 years to get a diagnosis when I knew something was wrong. And when I got that diagnosis, it was like someone acknowledged me and I was able to acknowledge myself, right? And I was given that label, complex, CPTSD. And it helped me do something about it. And I did what nobody else is doing. I took responsibility. I didn't go, oh no, I've got this and this. Well, I did actually. I did actually. I did for a bit. But at the same time, I was doing it. And I wasn't whinging, going about telling everyone, oh, I got PTSD. I was just saying, I've got PTSD. And every time I said that, every time, 100% of the time until I met Hazel, or when speaking to a psychotherapist, as soon as I said, I have this or I have that, people's face would just go like this. They would look at the floor, look away, change the subject, right? And, some horrible things said to me like, oh, have you ever thought to just, get over it or just cheer up? And it's like, okay, gaslight central, everyone. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of the most um, common desecrations of the soul you can imagine. And I will talk more into that. There's so much to say, but I'm going to keep it short because it's so big, and I'm going to do a course on this on my website. Right. So I'm going to do a list of symptoms and all of these disorders that I read out. God knows how many there are. Is at least 20, and all of these symptoms they all share. Right. Now tell me if you think there's something a bit iffy about this. Right. Anxiety and excessive worry, impulsivity, mood swings, disassociation and depersonalization, obsessive thinking, executive dysfunction. I don't know what that means. Emotional dysregulation. Yeah, that's a big one. Social withdrawal and isolation, sleep issues, insomnia and restlessness, low self-esteem and self-criticism, suicidal thoughts or self-harm. I know precisely what that one is. I know what all they are, but that one is a big one. Hyperactivity or restlessness. I'm going to talk about that in depth because this is to do with ADHD, and I've got some notes on this to remind me. Intrusive thoughts. That's a big one. That's a big one. Um, Substance abuse. Yeah. Chronic fatigue and low energy. Negative thinking patterns. Come on. Irritability. Really. Feelings of worthlessness or guilt. Yeah. Hypervigilance. That's a good one. Flashbacks or trauma recollection. Very interesting. Over analysis or overthinking. That was a big one for me actually. And physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches. Yeah, because that's nothing to do with dehydration or anything like that. There's so many reasons you can have a headache, and a lot of it is all emotional, right? Emotional numbness and dissociation. That's a huge one that I had. Is very common for men. It's to do with the closure of the heart. Well, it all is, and difficulty in relationships. Hmm. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this in a lot more detail, but I want to say that I have genuinely gone really deep into this and healed this. I took responsibility for everything instead of pointing the finger at other people and being self-righteous or passive aggressive or just whatever. I took responsibility, right? So when I first got my diagnosis, I was like, great. And he's like, do you want to see a psychotherapist? I was like, book me in immediately. And I went deep into that, and I went deep into so many things to just heal, right? anything I could heal. Like, a bit like Bruce Lee. Like he's like, I need to learn to fight, and he did all these different martial arts, and he ended up creating his own martial arts, JKD. And what I did was I also did the same. I read every self-help book I could. I went into biohacking, went deep into nutrition. I did psychotherapy. I did all these different kinds of psychotherapy. I did injections. Even had stellate ganglion blocks. That was really rough. That was really bad. And I tried experimental procedures. I even had ozone therapy. Like I tried anything, everything. I was even injecting myself with peptides. I was doing some really wild and really dangerous stuff. And it wasn't until I mean, they all helped. The biggest thing that helped was actually, to begin with, was psychotherapy and helping me identify my emotions because I wasn't aware of the emotions that I was feeling, so that I could identify and acknowledge them. That was a really powerful part. And then realizing that I was exhibiting narcissism, narcissistic behavior. And the other thing which really massively helped, which I see in the mental health community, I joined a lot, I've stopped recently. Um, I joined a lot of online men's health calls. There's this brilliant free online chat for men called Men Who Talk. It's completely free, and you can go on there and just talk with other men and say whatever you want. It's all confidential. And I met some people on men who are just really like on the edge, just written a suicide note and were ready to end it all. And I'd come on and say, look, this, and that. And it's just being there for someone because you can't make someone, change or heal themselves. They have to take their own journey. And this is what I find really difficult because people aren't willing to hear the truth. But just to make my point on that, one of the things I tried repeatedly and went really hardcore on is movement. And when I mean movement, I mean exercise. And exercise doesn't just mean in the gym, it means going for a walk, doing anything that's outside or is really pushing the physical realms of your body, really pushes that energy out of you and integrates new consciousness. And I noticed that most men who are in a really deep depression, they are overweight and they don't move and they can't find. And I went through this myself because there's this energy of apathy where all your dreams have been destroyed. I'm going to do a podcast on that with the lizard actually, because that's about apathy. When your dreams are destroyed and you don't know how to make your dreams real, like for example, if you've lost a loved one and you plan to create a life of them, that's your dreams are destroyed, right? And that creates apathy, which means a lack of movement. So you have to understand what apathy is trying to tell you in order to heal it, and the grieving aspect of losing your dreams and or loved one, right? And these lead to a really deep healing and a release of energy, like a light bomb going off inside you, like a love bomb. And it fills you with, and it takes time, but it fills you with a bit more hope. Every step is a small step to a new recreation of yourself through your own soul guidance. But because I've done the journey, I know there are huge shortcuts. I can quantum leap people through healing, through knowing the source of all of these symptoms, all of these disorders, right? And because I took responsibility and went into deep acknowledgement with my partner in saying I was a narcissist and she was healing through two narcissistic abusive marriages, that she was able to hold space for me and I was able to, and this was after I'd stopped working with my psychotherapist because I went started working with plant medicine, because I found a new way to tackle these distortions is, and see my video on the broken soul, you are broken. It's about distortions and how they appear and what they are, right? And what I did was I identified and took responsibility for all my narcissistic behavior. And when I did that, when you start to take responsibility, you see the source, you see that it all goes in the same direction. And what is narcissism? Narcissism is a toxic shame avoidance system. So when you avoid shame, When you avoid shame, you exhibit narcissistic behavior. Now, what causes the avoidance of shame? This is the bingo point. This is the bingo point, okay? What causes avoidance of shame is the pain of betrayal that you have caused your heart and soul. So, to simplify that, the cause of shame avoidance, the cause of narcissism, is avoiding opening your heart and feeling love. Okay. Now, when you know that, you can heal anything, anything. And it goes as deep, as shamanically deep as healing injuries. Like, say, for example, you've got a sore neck or you have bad skin, eczema, diseases. If you go deep enough and find the acknowledgement, you can heal anything. And this is the Holy Grail. And I'm having such an incredible week, really. Like, I'm going to release a video soon, which is going to show what I've been doing to heal. I'm really trying to show people that this new evolution of the soul, I've unlocked my full access of my consciousness, my full intellect through the unlocking of my and healing of my DNA. It's called the innate. If you Google innate Cryon, he does some talks on this. And I'm really trying to show people that when you expose the truth in yourself and take responsibility for it, you can heal anything. Now, let's talk about ADHD, right? ADHD is a crutch, right? And the main symptom is hyperactivity, right? What's it called again? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? So there's a deficit in attention, a deficit in focus and hyperactivity. And what happens is society gives them a box called ADHD. So gives us a box, ADHD, and people put themselves in it. And it's sad because people are living in that box and they're identifying that box. And it's a confinement. It's a spiritual confinement that people don't realize they're being enslaved and putting themselves in a cage. And so they're not able to see what's outside of that. And what's outside of that is just incredible, right? And I didn't even know I had ADHD or bipolar or CPTSD until I did, but I made a sacrifice of my ego to heal it and take responsibility for the shame that I was avoiding. And it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen fast because I was so devoted. And I talk about this in the videos on I talk about this in my other videos, right? Is what right? What would God do? Seriously, what would God do? God would say, I'm going to clean up this mess. So I'm going to take responsibility for all of it. And that's what I did. And I wouldn't recommend it, but it's really helped me quantum leap my healing is taking responsibility for everything that I feel. And when you take responsibility for it, you can say, okay, that's not mine. I know that sounds a bit counter what I'm saying, but when you take responsibility for something and heal it, you can realize where it actually comes from and realize that it's not yours. But you can only do that by first taking responsibility for it, right? Now, I've looked at CPTSD and this hyperactivity and defense, blah, the word that I just said, attention deficit. Yeah. So it's to do with speed, right? Now, what does speed do? Speed is a form of there's two things here. There's hyper focus, which can be really useful in getting things done, but it's a very cranial, and the attention deficit, right? Now, both of those link to one thing, right? Slowing down. Why can't they slow down? It's fear. Imagine a horse. I use this as horse wisdom, right? Horses, when they're afraid, they run. And when they have reins on them, which is a form of enslavement, and horses represent freedom and momentum, you're enslaving yourself, you're enslaving your freedom, right? And if you're enslaved enough, like this Stockholm syndrome, and you're in this box of ADHD and self-abuse, then you become addicted to self-slavery and bolting it. You live in fear. This what's this this fear what's it called where you live in this process of Fight, flight, or fear. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you live in the fight, flight, or fear, which I did for a very long time, it takes a long time to get out of your body. It's very somatic. It takes a very long time. There's a lot of trauma release that needs to happen. And there's so many different ways you can do that. But one of the best ways is through intense exercise and spiritual healing through plant medicine. And there's loads of ways. Um, Somatic therapy is very helpful. But um, oh, I lost my flow there. Yeah, flow. Okay, yeah, we're talking about flow. So attention deficit. There you go. So speed and no, we're talking about attention deficit. When there's a deficit from attention, so interruption, interrupting people, like I just interrupted myself, it stops flow, right? And I speak about this in my previous video about damnation, which is about flow, flow through the body and the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is about emotion and it stops the flow of emotion to the heart. And if it gets stopped in the solar plexus, there's this form of damnation where we create dams and it can't get to the heart. And this creates an attention deficit because we avoid the heart. Again, avoiding toxic shame avoidance. It's a form of narcissism. ADHD is a form of narcissism. It's all one branch tree from the matrix of these toxic roots. And so this flow to the heart can't open. If you notice anybody who has this non-stop movement, can't stand still, um, when they open their heart, they break open their heart, there's this huge release and this it's really difficult to put into words. It's really beautiful. I've been through it myself where there's just this complete acceptance and you come into your body and this is slowness because speed keeps us out of our body. It keeps us in the mind. That's why ADHD is very cognitive, very mental. And a lot of these are, most of them are, because it's very difficult to get to the heart when you have go through these all these different symptoms like disassociation and thinking patterns, negative thinking patterns. So thinking, again, the word, right? And psychology, they say it's about the mind. It's not. Psych. If you read anything into Greek mythology, you know that, or the etymology of the word, you know that psych is about the soul, and psychology is actually about the soul. And psychedelic means to reveal the soul. So working with plant medicine helps you reveal the soul. That's why they don't want us to take them. Now, people create bypasses around their heart to reinforce the lies they're told because learning the truth is painful for the heart because it brings up the ignorance and shame of avoiding the truth. And sticking for the lies for so long creates even more shame. So the more we run away and turn a blind eye from our heart, like I used the analogy of the horse, the more difficult it is to go inside and look at the shame. And it's such a challenge when you don't have guidance on how to do this because we're not taught how to do this. Instead, we're just taught how to distract ourselves from it and fill that avoidance and that hole with more addictions like food, alcohol, drugs, and social media scrolling. And the really these conditions like ADHD, they're coffins, and labels don't free you. They bury you alive if you attach to them for too long. They're there for healing, not for attachment. And society gave you that ADHD and you accepted it. What if ADHD is more of a social construct than a disorder? Because exactly that's what it is. But the ego loves ADHD more than you do, and that's what you have to realize. Because this struggle that people go through gives people a sense of self-worth, a sense of identification. But the struggle I used it in devotion to healing. That struggle, it's like lifting weights or going for a run. You try to learn to use that struggle to give you something to fight for, something to fight for. And that's what my channel's about. It's about fighting for love, not fighting for fear. Because this is what people are doing. Um, they're fighting for their right to say, I have ADHD and I will stick with that. But the longer you stick with that, the more difficult it is to let it go. And I speak about this. Let me just check. Sorry, my microphone is okay. Um, and I speak about this. Yeah, it's okay. So I speak about this about how I forgot what I was saying, so I'll move on. So the yeah, I got a bit distracted there by that. See, again, this is what we're talking about. So if I now slow down, right, this, so I'm giving you an example of how this works. I slow down and it takes time. I feel my heart, I feel my body. Because if I'm in fear, I go up here, right? So there was a problem with my camera because I saw the screen flickering. And I can continue to try and go, oh no, people might be judging me. Oh no, I might lose their attention. They may stop watching my video. Or I can just take a breath and come back in. Acknowledge that I'm flustered and come back into focus. Now, what these labels are asking us to do is to say, okay, I have a problem and I need to look at it. And there are so many ways we can do that. But personally, I never stuck to one method. I think that's in my humble opinion, that is death. That's death. And I wrote I channel wrote these I channel wrote this about separation, right? When you go through this healing, when you are going through your journey of healing, if you choose that or not, this is what this is about. I'm going to read it out. If you choose that, you have a choice. You always have a choice. Every second, every moment, every day, you have a choice. You have a choice to change. And I know how difficult that choice is, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? But you can choose, right? Separation or wholeness. I'm reading off a paper here, but you can't see it. Life or death. So let's just go back and just slow this down a bit. Separation or wholeness? Do you choose to be whole or do you choose separation? So do you choose to attach to um, the idea of fitting into somebody's ideology or somebody else's opinion, ADHD, PTSD, whatever, right? Or do you choose wholeness and say, okay, I've identified a problem and I'm going to work with that. That's more in alignment with wholeness. Life or death? Do you choose to heal this and come to life, or do you choose to further express the symptoms and go deeper into it, leading to death? And I was just going to mention about suicide. I've done a lot of videos on this. On suicide is a distortion of spiritual death versus physical death. A spiritual death is asking for an ego death. And again, these men and women who go through these times of really difficult times of not knowing how to heal their distortions. Unfortunately, a lot of people that choose a physical death, but it's because they don't know how to choose the spiritual death of ego death, because it's like trying to break through a ceiling. And when you can't break through it, you go back down into those dark emotions and it's very difficult and you lose hope. And I've been there so many times. And each time I just had this mantra in my head saying, don't give up, don't give up. There's something at the end, over the rainbow. And I remember I was watching Wizard of Oz, and there's that song that she sings, and she said, "If bluebirds can fly over the rainbow, why oh why can't I?" And it really hit me really deep, and I was like, "Yeah, why can't I?" And I ran with that, right? And the only way to overcome physical death is to suicide is to choose for life, choose for life, right? And the best way to do that is to find a way to overcome these limitations and walls that we build for ourselves, that we accept and buy from others. We buy these distortions, and they don't serve us. The only way they, if I turn the tables on this, the only way they do serve us is by telling us which way not to go. We go the opposite way to the ego. We go the opposite way, right? I'll continue the list. Knowledge or wisdom? Knowledge, knowledge is mental. Wisdom is integrated knowledge of doing it. So we can say, oh, yeah, we know something, we know the symptoms of ADHD, we know this and that, but do you know how to heal it? Do you know how to get it out of you? That's wisdom. So wisdom is the heart, knowledge is the mind. The mind is a humble servant of the heart. And true knowledge, true truth, and wisdom comes from the heart. So the journey is always about coming back to the heart. And this is what I'm about. And this is what I had to learn. It's been a very difficult journey because my heart slammed shut at a very young age due to all the abuse and trauma that I received. Mind or heart is the next one. Again, no brainer. Love or fear. Everything is based on that. Everything. Do you choose fear or love? I mean, if you live by that question on your healing journey, it can be make it a lot easier. Are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? For example, are you choosing to worry about something? If you are, you're choosing fear. Are you choosing to believe in yourself? Then you're choosing love. Which one will you choose? So your mind is a maze, but you built that maze, right? And you can choose to leave it. And people complain about ADHD, right? But they reinforce the very patterns that sustain it. And what I find really difficult is when you try to tell someone that you want to help, and I don't mean the preaching fashion, I mean like saying, hey, look, ADHD isn't there to preach about, to say, oh, I've got this, I've got that. Poor me, look at me, recognize me. It's about healing it. Like I've said, and I'll repeat that. When you've been given something, look at it and say, okay, I'll take responsibility for it, but I'm not going to own it. I'll take responsibility for it, but I'm not going to own it. And I'm going to heal it. But for people who are triggered by this, truth feels like violence. Think about that, right? Truth feels like violence to those people who are living a lie. The anger you get for speaking the truth against you isn't about you. It's about their internal war that they're having with their self, and that is projected. I talk about projections and all of these different symptoms of toxic shame avoidance in my videos, and I continue to talk about it to bring awareness to all of this. It's all about awareness. When you bring that inner awareness to your own behavior, you can change overnight. And you can heal anything. You just need the right guidance. You just need the right guidance. I never had that guidance. Nobody helped me. Everybody just said horrible things or just like, oh, just relax, you know. And every time I listened to someone else, I became stagnant and I couldn't heal and I became really dangerously unhappy, dangerously. And it took me 20 years. Well, what is it now? 2025. It's taken me a long time. It's taken me a long time to heal, but there are some shortcuts that I wish I knew. But the best thing that I did is that I always had this voice, right, saying one day you're gonna help people with this. And I learned all the mistakes so that you don't have to, and I can coach you on that. Um, I'm offering soul coaching on my website, and I'm doing plant medicine integration coaching, um, sacred partnership coaching, and I'm doing courses on breaking down narcissism so that you can identify it in yourself. And I really hope this resonates with you, and I really hope it helps you. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on anyone. This is just about the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts because it, again, triggers the toxic shame avoidance. And when we feel that pain, we need to sit in it and feel it and let it guide us back to our heart so that we can acknowledge it and grieve it. So, welcome to this new age of healing. Welcome. Aho.